It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
I haven't been able to say this in a very long time. Welcome to a sweep edition of Rico Brogna. As the team where Rico had his most success, the New York Mets, swept the team that likes to think he had his most success there, the Philadelphia Phillies, in 3 straight games. And really, game 3, the topper to this 3-game sweep, was all about one man, one individual, one guy who I think is exciting us all, and that is the truth, Nolan McLean, who delivered in just his 3rd major league start an absolute studly, dominant, ace-like performance. And you can count the ways that this was an ace-like performance by Nolan McLean as the Mets win a game that they needed to get if you still want to dream about the National League East, sweeping Philadelphia and pulling within 4 of the division lead. But putting the exclamation point on what was a fun ass-whooping of the Philadelphia Phillies over these 3 games. Wasn't always easy. I mean, think about the way this thing started 2 episodes ago. If you go back to episode 536 of the Rico Brogna, we broke down in depthly what happened in game 1. We did a drive home podcast that night. The Mets are down 3-0. It felt like they were dead man walking. And then the offense exploded. They scored 13 unanswered runs. Alec Boehm was bitching about microphones. And the Mets turned a game that felt like an inevitable loss into a laugher. You go back to last night's game or 2 nights ago, depending on when you're listening, episode 537 of the Rico Brogna. We did an instant reaction to the comeback, the blown lead, and eventually the walk-off as Johan Duran could not record an out in the bottom of the 9th inning as the Mets walk off the Philadelphia Phillies in game number 2. Game number 3 was so different because this was pure domination. There was no moment early in the game in which you said, uh-oh, the way you did in game 1 and certainly at various points of game 2. This was Nolan McLean in just his 3rd major league start, entering his ballpark, his jungle City Field. And from the moment the game started, this is a feeling we don't have very often. You could think back to Doc or Jake or Harvey in his prime, or obviously for our older listeners, George Thomas Seaver. When a guy walks on the mound, puts his balls out, and says, I'm going to dominate you. Think about the way this game started. And I have to admit, I missed this. I was coming from work to the game with my 4-year-old son. And so we can't run as fast, can't sprint through that boardwalk that connects the LIRR to Citi Field as much as I do with my older son. So we walked very gingerly into the ballpark, and I missed the entire top of the 1st inning. And I got to my seat at 7:16. And I look at my dad, who I was meeting at the game, and I said, what the hell happened? Like, what, how did that go so quick? And so I pull up my phone and I analyze. Oh, he struck out Trey Turner on 3 pitches to start the game. Oh, okay. He got Kyle Schwarber on 3 pitches to weakly ground out to Pete Alonso. Okay. And then the overrated Bryce Harper hit one pretty hard, but right at Brandon Nimmo. So Nolan McLean threw, what was it, 8 pitches in the 1st inning and pitched a 1-2-3 1st inning. Then you go to the 2nd inning, gets a 2-pitch ground out, actually gives up a base hit to Alec Boehm, and then what happens immediately on the next pitch? Gets Max Kepler to ground into a 3-6-3 double play. I guess Pete Alonso can make throws every once in a while. Hi, Salicata. That's just because he bitches to me that Pete can't make throws. 2 innings, barely breaks a sweat. And I got to tell you, sitting there, I wasn't even worried about the Met offense. This was a weird feeling watching this game because McLean was in such control over the first 2 innings. And I also figured, like, they'll rip Taijuan Walker at some point. Like, I wasn't sitting there worried that Taijuan Walker's going to dominate them. So even when he pitched a 1-2-3 1st inning and he had a clean 2nd inning, my thought was, all right, if Nolan McLean's going to dominate, don't worry. They will eventually score runs. And that rare positive feeling turned out to all be true, because eventually they did get to Taijuan Walker in that third inning where they pieced together 5 consecutive base hits to start the inning. But Nolan McLean was just pure filth. And what he did so consistently, which is so refreshing to see. I mean, there's so many things this man does that's refreshing to see compared to some of the pitchers we've watched over the last few years. But let's start with pounding the strike zone. Let's just start with that. Let's start with a guy who's ahead of everybody 0-1. A guy who is not nibbling. A guy who is getting constant swing and misses on his sweeper, on his changeup, on his curveball, on his fastball. He's throwing the kitchen sink at you. And I know this is the first time around the league. And you know why I don't care about that kind of stuff? If this was April, if we were doing the Rico Brogna in April and Nolan McLean was 3 starts into his major league career, and we're like, oh my God, he's going to be the next DeGrom, he's the next Seaver, I'd say calm down first time around the league. The reason I don't want to say that right now is it's August 27th, August 28th. First time around the league takes you to October. And isn't that all we're worried about right now? I'm not breaking down what teams are going to think when they see him for a second or third time. He's only made 3 major league starts. There's a chance teams are only going to see him once. If the Mets ever see the LA Dodgers in the postseason, they'll be seeing him for the first time. Obviously, the Phillies may see him a second time since they saw him in Game 3 of this series. So I'm not even overly concerned about the first time around the league stuff, because obviously pitchers can also make adjustments. But his first time around the league is now. And it's in this pennant race. And it's potentially in this postseason. But the other thing that Nolan McLean did, we talk about throwing strike one. We talk about his nasty stuff. If there was ever a game based on bullpen usage of the night before and really the last few nights, combined with the fact that the Mets have no off days until the following Thursday. So they were a week away from getting an off day, including the game they just played, 8 straight games without an off day. They needed length. And how many times have we said that about the Mets this season, that they needed length? And their starting pitcher, whether it was Sean Manaea or it was Kodai Senga or it was Clay Holmes, would go out there and twirl 4 1/3 innings. And if they gave you 5, we'd act like it's a celebration. Nolan McLean, through 5 scoreless innings in which he faced the minimum, only 1 base runner against him, through 49 pitches. I had to pinch myself looking at the score. 49 pitches in 5 innings. That's called 2 1/3 from Senga. I mean, are we kidding ourselves? Go back and watch Senga and Manaea, no offense, and Clay Holmes. That's their pitch count in the 3rd inning, in the 2nd inning. And this guy, who is still a child, who is making only his 3rd major league start, and the Phillies have a good lineup. They do. You look up and down Turner and Schwarber and Harper and Rio Muto. This is a professional lineup, and he's making them look like children. And he's barely breaking a sweat. You know, it's one thing to throw 5 scoreless innings against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's good. It's another thing to throw 5 scoreless innings against the Phillies and have your pitch count at 49 in a game in which they needed length. When Carlos Mendoza met the media before the game, he was asked, hey, you concerned about the fact that your bullpen may not have a lot of available arms? Now, the great news is we'll never know who was available and who wasn't, because the only guy to ever warm up in this game was Brooks Raley, who eventually entered the game in the 9th inning. But was Edwin Diaz available? Was Tyler Rogers available? Would he have dare gone back to Ryan Helsley? I don't know, and I don't care, because Nolan McLean, unlike everybody in this rotation, not named David Peterson, was able to make it all irrelevant because he went out there, he dominated, he was efficient, and there was a shot of him going 9. Now, I think when he slowed down, specifically in the 8th inning, he ran into trouble getting the 3rd out in the 7th inning, which brought his pitch count up a tad, but it was still only 76 through 7 innings. which is incredibly efficient. But obviously, in the eighth inning, protecting what is a very comfortable 6-0 lead because Mark Vientos added the insurance of a 2-run home run. We'll get to him later. He gives up the first 2 base hits, including a hit to Alec Boehm where he was ahead of the count 1-2, and a base hit to Max Kepler. And I'm looking over at the Met bullpen, and I'm thinking, all right, he's running out of gas. He's human. Good news is they're up 6-0. But the concern you may have is if this gets dicey, if McLean is really losing it right now in the eighth inning, A, how many more batters do you give him if you Mendy? B, who you going to? It was clearly Brooks Raley who was warming up in the bullpen. And then what after that? Because of what Diaz did the previous night, I don't think it was likely he was available. I don't think it's likely a lot of guys were available. It really was going to feel like a Brooks Raley, Ryan Stanek kind of night, if you think about it, which is it's not ideal. Or Kevin Herget, who they called up prior to the game with Huascar Brazaban going back down to the minor leagues. But what he did in the eighth inning, what his teammates did in the eighth inning in protecting that shutout is another of the examples on the ace-like performance we saw from the truth, Nolan McLean. There's 2 on, there's nobody out, it's 6-0, and Nick Castellanos hits a fly ball to right field. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what Juan Soto says, what Carlos Mendoza says. Juan Soto is getting under that baseball, and he's thinking about protecting a shutout for a rookie pitcher. Because he came firing. It's a 6-0 game in the eighth inning. Like that run scoring with anyone else on the mound would be like, fine. I'll trade an out for a run. I have a 6-run lead. But because it's Nolan McLean, and because he had already thrown 7 scoreless innings, and because he showed his guts against the Mariners 2 weeks earlier, and his guts against Atlanta 5 days earlier, I got the sense, tell me if I'm wrong, that Juan Soto was firing that baseball home to protect his guy, Nolan McLean. That was his way of saying, I am protecting that shutout for you, Nolan McLean. And he made a great throw. And then the next batter, Bryson Stott, hits a little bit of a deeper fly ball to left field against the Swiss cheese arm of Brandon Nimmo. And I'm thinking, all right, the shutout's gone. And I'm not bothered by it. Like, this is a great performance, whether it's 8 innings, 1 run, or 8 innings, 0 runs. It's a wonderful, wonderful performance. And again, Brandon Nimmo comes up firing. I do have to criticize something very, very tiny, just a little tiny criticism. And Hoff, tell me if I'm nuts here. So again, it's 6-0. This is the second out of the inning that Brandon Nimmo's about to catch. And much like Soto, he's firing at home. As he's firing at home, the runner on first, who we're not thinking about, Max Kepler, tags up and goes to second, or goes on the throw. So technically, it's a fielder's choice. In the whole grand scheme of things, forget about Nolan McLean's ERA or how much we love the guy. Isn't it more valuable to keep him at first base than the runner from scoring with 2 outs in the eighth inning up 6-0? Am I nuts? And I'm not complaining. I'm merely making an observation that when I saw Kepler go to second, I'm like, this is probably more damaging because now you're a base hit away from it becoming a 6-2 game.
Yeah, I mean, logically correct. You want to prevent runners from advancing as much as possible. So if you're going to give up that run and you prevent the runner from getting to second base, that's huge. But I got to be honest, it felt like everyone was doing their best to keep this game a shutout. And after you saw Soto make that throw, Nimmo's like, I'm gonna do my best too. He didn't airmail it, but he threw it way past the home plate. His arm looked the strongest it's ever looked, to be honest with you.
He's protecting his guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from a baseball standpoint, having that runner go to second base, not ideal because you're a base hit away from making it 6-2. But I also knew, and I think we all knew this, he was getting that third out. Like, there was no way that Harrison Bader who got robbed of a home run by Jeff McNeil. What a play McNeil played in center. But there was no way that McLean was giving up a hit to Harrison Bader. I kind of knew that. We all kind of knew that. And when he got Bader to hit that little tapper back to the mound, I did something I rarely do. I don't do this very often, but it shows you how much I appreciate Nolan McLean, how pumped up I was about Nolan McLean. Part of why I love sitting first row of a section is I never want to stand up. I just want to watch the game. And I don't stand up. 2 strikes, I don't stand up. 1 out away from winning, I don't stand up. Guy hits a home run, I don't stand up. I never stand up during games. But I stood up here because as Nolan McLean walked off the mound, I wanted to show everybody in that goddamn dugout that's what's worth a standing ovation. You give us 5 innings, thanks. Golf clap. You give us 6 innings, wonderful. Stronger golf clap. Even 7 innings. Like, that's nice. That's awesome, especially this day and age. But when you go 8 innings against the Philadelphia Phillies and you walk off the mound with your balls hanging there like, hey, what's up? I just went 8 innings. That is when I'm going to stand up out of my seat, the lazy man that I am, and say, standing ovation. Because for anybody out there who wants to say, this guy's an ace, that guy's an ace, even Jake at the end I had this issue with. You got to go 8. Going 6 is cute. It's cute, and I appreciate it. Like, trust me, give me 6 dominant innings, which DeGrom used to do at the end. But if you want to be like an all-timer, if you want to be a true ace, then you put on the board what Nolan McLean did on this Wednesday night. Even what he did 5 days earlier against Atlanta when he went 7 innings. That's ace stuff. So you may be able to replay this Rico Brogna months from now and mock me and say, you went nuts about Nolan McLean. You thought the guy was Tom Seaver. I'm just reacting to what he did on a Wednesday night and what he's done to begin his career. He has shown balls. He has shown stamina. He has shown guts. He has nasty stuff. And I could tell his teammates love him. And I'll tell you something else. I don't know where this season is going. All right, I'm sure we'll all make prognostications again. The division's back in play. The division's not in play. Here's what I know. Last year, you could give me Grimace all day. You could give me OMG all day. What has turned the Mets around is Nolan effing McLean, because they were a dead bunch when they lost that Friday night game to Seattle. They were dead. They were dogs. And this guy on a Saturday afternoon against the Mariners, and I know it was only into the 6th inning. I get it. But it changed everything. And everything feels different. It just does, especially with Jonah Tong 48 hours away from making his major league debut. And I don't know if he's going to be Nolan McLean, but could you imagine if he is? I mean, we may be living in like a modern day Koufax and Trisdale. A modern Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. All right, I'm getting way too ahead of myself. But my point is, this is the kind of baseball that really excites me, watching an ace pitch ace-like stuff like we saw from Nolan McLean.
You hit everything on the head. I mean, there's really the only question I have now is if that's the only time you stand. I mean, this is a special moment, dude. This is like when they went to the playoffs and they won and they moved on series by series. Did you stand there?
Well, that's different because the game is over. So
okay.
When the game is over, I will eventually stand up, usually to leave. So I'm talking about an in-game stand.
So we need to do an award at the end of the season. Your in-standing moments, Evan's in-standing moments, in-game standing moments.
And I got to tell you, and I have to ask my friend who I was with, I don't know if I even stood for Alonso breaking the home run record. I don't remember. I may have. I don't remember that.
I'm assuming you stood when David Wright, they retired his number, right? I mean, that was before the game. So
That's so different because it's before the game. So I'm talking about mid-game stand. Look, I think it's being a Met fan. I think most of us as Met fans have this infatuation with pitching because we may not have the greatest history of all the other baseball teams, but I'll put the Met pitching history up against a lot of franchises. I'd put it up against the Yankees. And the Yankees have been around for a million years and have won a ton of championships. I'll put the greatest Met pitchers versus the greatest Yankee pitchers. And that's not a knock on the Yanks. It's just more, Tom Seaver is one of the great pitchers of all time. I know Doc didn't get in the Hall of Fame, but for a couple of years, there was nobody better. There was nobody better than Jake. Like, this is a franchise that's had a lot of great pitching. And that's been missing the last couple of years. And it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy last year's run. Of course I did. But think about what the staff was built on. But I said this to you a few Ricos ago, and maybe I'm giving David Stearns way too much credit when I say this. But you now look back at all of the starting pitching additions that we hated, some that didn't work out, Frankie Montas, some that have, Sean Manaea, at least last year. And you say to yourself, well, maybe the reason that David Stearns didn't want to commit long-term years to starting pitchers is because he knew. Because he knew what was coming. And maybe it's tough to know that Nolan McLean was going to turn into this, or even Jonah Tong was going to be as highly regarded as he has now become. And we'll see about Brandon Sproat when he gets the call. I still think he will this season. But now all of a sudden, we are witnessing, and we'll see if it turns out this way, the modern-day hype of Isringhausen, Wilson, and Pulsifer. The modern-day hype of Harvey, DeGrom, Wheeler, Syndergaard, and Matz. And I think the difference between those situations and this situation is it's happening in the middle of a pennant race. It's happening with an already good team. But look, every positive word you want to use to describe Nolan McLean's performance and what he's done 3 starts in, I think he's worthy of it. But the story continues. He's got to go face the Detroit Tigers next week. Let's see how he does. Let's just see. He may be lined up to face, we'll see how the days work out, the Cincinnati Reds, depending on if they want to use him on regular rest or not. Let's see how he does. He may take on Philadelphia in that 4-game series. We talk about first time around the league. They'll be seeing him again. Let's see how he does. So the story still has a lot to be written, but kudos to Nolan McLean, who made Citi Field his ballpark and his playground on a Wednesday night when he toyed with the Philadelphia Phillies.
And by the way, and I know that you went through the 8th inning, but I do want to give Mendoza a little ounce of credit because he could have gone in there and pulled him after that first batter got on, and he didn't. And obviously the pitch count was very low, which was part of the reason why he was still in there. Obviously, if he was at 100 pitches in the 7th, he would have been gone. But yeah, his pitch count was so low, you had to put him out there for the 8th. And listen, was there ever a thought for the 9th? Whatever, who cares?
No.
But Mendoza did the right thing. He let him battle. It was you had enough wiggle room with Vientos' home run, by the way. Mwah, sign that MFer. That dude is on fire. 10-game hitting streak. What is it? 17 RBIs, but whatever. His home run gave you more wiggle room to let McLean get out of that situation. Thank you, Mark Vientos.
Yes, and thank you to Mendy, because you're right. At any point in that 8th inning, he could have said, you know what, kid, let's bring you out on a positive note. He allowed Nolan McLean to finish the job. I thought it was a no-brainer to take him out after 8. I thought that was clearly it for him. Pitch counts at 95. You have a comfortable lead. He's already done his job of saving the Met bullpen. Brooks Raley throwing 1 inning in the 9th inning. And, with Brooks, even when he gave up the leadoff hit to Trey Turner, I was not concerned this was going to turn into some kind of implosion where they were going to have to get Diaz warmed up. You knew Raley is solid enough to just get the job done. So no problem with that. Before we get into Vientos and the Met offense, and we will pick the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series in the net negative, let us celebrate Nolan McLean. And let's, in fact, let me get right here. Let me get my Mio sparkling sake. And I say, I salute you, Nolan McLean. And you can celebrate your highlights with Mio Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser, light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy, whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot. Ask for Mio Sparkling Sake by name. A new tradition served chilled, imported from Japan, the official sake of Rico Brogna. As far as the offense is concerned, what is so cool about what the Mets accomplished in this 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies is they scored a ton of runs, right? They went out and they scored 13 runs in game 1. They went out and they scored 6 runs in game 2. That gets us to 19 runs. And then 6 runs in game 3. So 25 runs in 3 games. Pretty impressive. Do you know how many home runs they hit in this 3-game series? In case anybody can play this game at home. Can you remember off the top of your head off how many home runs they hit in this 3-game series?
I want to say, how many did they hit on Monday? Did they hit a lot? I can't remember. They scored how many runs?
They scored 13 runs on Monday, and they hit 1 home run. And that was Luis Torrenz's 3-run home run in the 7th inning.
So what, they hit like 2 home runs?
2 home runs. They went out and scored 25 runs, and they only hit 2 home runs. They bludgeoned the Philadelphia Phillies with base hits. You know, you go to the 3rd inning. Think about how the 3rd inning was built against Taijuan Walker. Brett Beatty rips a double, who had not started a game in a couple of days, but continues to be hot and effective. Hayden Singer comes up to lay down a bunt, which was beautiful because, of course, he should be bunting. The Mets need to treat the 9th hole, the catcher spot, almost as a pseudo pitcher spot. And with a runner on second and nobody out, and Nolan McLean dealing, lay down a bunt, advance that runner to 3rd, and give Lindor and Soto a chance to drive him in. This was such a good bunt. It got past Taijuan Walker. Turner couldn't field it. It's a base hit. Then Lindor, first pitch, RBI single. Then Juan Soto works a deep count, rips a base hit. Then Pete Alonso early in the count, rips a base hit. The only negative is that after Alonso's hit that didn't score Soto from second, and Juan added another stolen base, they had 1st and 3rd, nobody out, up 3-0, and they couldn't score any more runs. That's one of those parts of the game in which, because I had the confidence in McLean and the confidence that the Philly bullpen is bludgeoned, that Taijuan Walker's not very good, I was disappointed when Nimmo struck out and Vientos bounced into the double play. But it wasn't like some of the other moments this season where they failed to score and you think, crap, we're screwed. But 5 consecutive base hits lead to 3 runs. They get a clutch hit by Mark Vientos in the 5th inning, and that was another inning that had a chance to be incredibly frustrating because Lindor led off with what should have been a double off the wall, but got thrown out at second base by Harrison Bader. And then they put together a 2-out rally, which they have been so good at during this run where their offense has clicked. You know, you think back and think to the rallies the Mets have put together during this offensive renaissance they've had over the last few weeks. So much of it has come with 2 outs. They get a 2-out walk by Pete, an 0-2 2-out single by Brandon Nimmo, and then Mark Vientos, who is a major candidate for the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series, which we'll get to in a few minutes, rips a clutch 2-out RBI single to make it 4-0, and then 2 innings later hits the bomb of a home run that broke the game open. But something else that Mendy did that I really loved before they started this game, and I mentioned it briefly on my FAN show earlier in the day with Sean Morash, and that was for the first time since the Cedric Mullins trade, we saw Carlos Mendoza start Jeff McNeil in center. I had said that a few Ricos ago. They have to go back to it with the way Beatty's hit, with the way Vientos has hit, and here's the X factor, with the way Marte has hit. Cedric Mullins is not earning playing time. And he's also not that good defensively. Like, this may sound nuts. How much better is Cedric Mullins defensively than Jeff McNeil? I mean, Jeff McNeil has done yeoman's work in center. And we saw him make that great leaping home run saving catch against Harrison Bader in the 6th inning. But his defense has been solid out there. So for the first time since the Mullins trade, Carlos Mendoza sent the message. And I think the message has been sent loud and clear to Cedric Mullins. You are not guaranteed everyday at-bats. Now, if you perform, if you hit, great. You should play. But he didn't start the 2 previous games against the left-hander. And now against Taijuan Walker, they went with what is right now, and that's the key, what is right now their best lineup, which is Vientos at third, Beatty at second, McNeil in center, and yes, Starling Marte at DH, who played all 3 games of this series. The first 2 you get against the lefty. But against Taijuan Walker, we saw the same thing. So really a great all-around win. Awesome defense, even plays that weren't made, like the diving play by Brett Beatty in the 9th inning on the Trey Turner infield hit, in which he came very close to pulling that one off. But solid defense all around, great starting pitching by Nolan McLean, and clutch hitting. I'm going to get to your emails now because I feel like, and this is my fault, I haven't done enough of the emails at the ricob@gmail.com. So what we'll do right now is I'll read a ton of your emails about various subjects. We will name the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series. We will name the net negative, which I know is tough to do when you sweep a 3-game series. And we'll talk a little Francisco Alvarez, who had a weird update from his rehab game and what we could expect from Francisco Alvarez, if anything at all. All right, let's go to Joshua, who writes, McLean Singer battery, first time, long time. Now, he sent this email 30 seconds ago. See, this is my problem with the emails. I go from most recent to the back, so that's why I miss so many people, so I apologize. With Alvarez possibly suffering a setback due to getting hit on the hand, meaning we'll likely continue to see Singer, do you think he'll be McLean's exclusive catcher until he gets sent down? I don't know if he's going to be his exclusive catcher, but I think early on, with McLean getting kind of acclimated to the major league level, it always made sense for Hayden Singer, or it has made sense for Hayden Singer, because remember, in his first start, he wasn't on the major league roster because it was prior to Alvarez getting hurt. Alvarez would get hurt the next day. But with Singer being here and the fact that he caught him at AAA, it just makes sense. But no, I don't think it needs to be a permanent thing. I think it's something that you do to make them feel comfortable. This is from Greg. The NL East is over? Seriously, man, what is the deal with you using the word dream and hedging on whether the NL East is realistic 4 games back on August 27th? What is that? You must know better. So are you just unable to admit you are wrong by being so declarative a few days ago? The Mets were 7 games back of Arizona at the end of August last year. We know what happened. I have felt for a while the NL East was over. Now, if your question is, and maybe this is what Greg is asking, hey, Ev, the Mets swept the Phillies. You didn't think they would sweep the Phillies. I did not. I have no problem admitting I'm wrong. I did not think the Mets would sweep the Phillies. I think the words I used on the Rico and on the fan were, you know, they're not sweeping the Philadelphia Phillies. So I can't be more wrong about that. Is the NL East over? I still don't think we're winning the division. If that's the answer you're looking for, or that's what you want me, or you want me to say, like, no, I don't think they're going to win the division. Now, that may be depressing to hear when we're doing such a happy Rico Brogna, but me being happy about the 3-game sweep of Philadelphia, me being pumped up about Nolan McLean, doesn't mean that over the final, what do we got, 30 games left this season, they're going to be able to make up 4 on Philadelphia. I don't think they are. I don't think they're going to sweep them in Philadelphia in a couple of weeks, nor do I think they're just going to watch the Philadelphia Phillies melt. Look, for whatever reason, the Mets have great success against the Phillies, and I love it. I ain't throwing it back. So is it declaratively over? Obviously, they got a shot, and obviously, I'm going to be glued to Phillies Braves over the weekend, doing my tomahawk chop, hoping they give us some help. I want to win the division. But no, I don't think we're going to win the division. I'm not going to alter that just because of the feel goods of these 3 days. Though, Hoff, you got to do me a favor, because we have this FAN segment where I ask Sal Licata, is the NL East over and over again? And he finally did declare it over after the Mets lost to Atlanta. Now, to Sal's credit, he's been more positive than I've been about the Mets' chances in this division. Has he unended the NL East? Because it was over on Monday. Has he changed his mind 3 days later?
Yeah, I think that there was a mix-up with that tweet.
What do you mean there was a mix-up with that tweet? What does that mean?
I don't think he I don't think there was a firm definition or there was a firm meaning behind it. I think there was he sent it out. You interpret it how you want to. The NL East is over for who?
First of all, that doesn't work because on Monday's radio show, we called up Sal at 5 o'clock, asked him if the NL East was over, and he said, "Yeah, I'm done." So I don't know. Here's the real key, and Dan points this out. Can the Mets actually sustain the ridiculous amount of momentum this series just gave them for once? Or was the last 3 days just the Phillies wetting themselves like us in Atlanta? If they don't use this to catapult a legit run now, I don't know when we'll ever see that. And that's the real key to all this. This was an incredible 3-game series victory against Philadelphia. But they have to build off of this. I mean, the truth is, the Mets played bad baseball for multiple months. And I would say the last 2 games against Seattle felt like a turnaround. But then look what ended up happening. They lose a series to the Nationals. They did win a series against Atlanta. You don't want to poo-poo that as much as the Sunday game was such a disappointment. And now you got this. It's not like they've been playing great baseball for a month now. So Dan is spot on about this. And I think this is where I would believe more that they're going to win the National League East if they just start playing better for a longer period of time. They played well for a week and a half after sucking for 2 months. Anthony sends the email asking the same question. Evan, you've been saying the division is not a reality. Do you still feel that way? They're winning the division. That's from Anthony. I think that it's obviously in play when you're 4 games back. And like I said, I'm going to be scoreboard watching every single night. But I think a lot of it is, can I trust this team? Can we trust this team to build off of what they just accomplished? That's going to be the real key. Ed Flood writes, not only did Nolan McLean dominate his son in the Phillies, but he literally went 8 innings and rested our taxed pen in the middle of a 16 games in 16-day stretch. If he's not the I'm the man now in the series, then the system is broken. He dominated the team ahead of us in our division and helped us in the future by going 8 shutty. God, he's so good. It's malpractice. He wasn't up a month ago. I try not to think about that because I remember feeling that way about Vientos last year. For anyone who's a longer time Rico Brogna listener, back last year, even when they signed J.D. Martinez, I wanted Vientos to be on the team and get an opportunity. He didn't get that opportunity. They put him in AAA. He then got called up, hit a game-winning home run against the Cardinals, and they sent him down again, and I was apoplectic about it, or apocalyptic about it, whatever the word is. I wasn't happy. Vientos finally comes up, takes the third base job. The rest is history. And some would say, hey, Ev, are you pissed off that they didn't do it sooner? And a part of me would be pissed off because I wanted him up here, just like we all wanted McLean up here. But what we'll never know about Vientos is, did him not making the team and did him being sent down after hitting a game-winning home run lead to the success he would eventually have? So in some of the minor league starts that McLean made that he wouldn't have made if we got our way, does that help him get to the point where he's at right now? And that's a fair question. Now, Ed brings up the Rico, I'm the man now star of the series. Let's have an open discussion about it. This series, and obviously when you sweep one, there are going to be a lot of really good candidates. Let me give you a few of them, and then we will decide the Rico, I'm the man now star of the series. Offensively, Pete Alonso was 6 for 13 with 3 RBIs. Brandon Nimmo was 5 for 12 with 3 RBIs, including the game winner in game 2. Really, though, the only offensive candidate, in my opinion, with all due respect to Nimmo and to Alonso, is Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos went 5 for 10. He hit a home run and he drove in 6 runs, including driving in a run in every game of this series. With all due respect to everyone else who contributed offensively, and there were plenty, even Luis Torrens had the 5 RBI game in game 1. Jeff McNeil had a 3 RBI game in game 1. Juan Soto was on base plenty of times in this series. It's Mark Vientos from the offensive side. So let's put him to the side and say, all right, fair candidate. From the bullpen side, how do we ignore Edwin Diaz? The guy came in such a horrific spot because Mendy was clueless, bringing Diaz in after he allowed Ryan Helsley to face an extra batter. He gets the 2 outs on strikeouts and then pitches the easiest 9th inning you'll ever see with 2 more strikeouts. Gets 5 outs, 4 on strikeouts, keeps the game tied. Mets win the game in the bottom of the 9th inning. Edwin Diaz is absolutely a Rico, I'm the man now, star of the series candidate. And then you have the truth, and that is Nolan McLean. And to our last emailer, you're right. Thank you, Mark Vientos, for your service. Thank you for driving in 5 runs. Keep it going. Edwin Diaz. Edwin, thank you for your time. You've done brilliant. But Nolan McLean pitching 8 innings to sweep the series. And I think most of us would admit, for those that are on the bandwagon that the Mets can win the NL East, they couldn't if they didn't win this game. They needed to complete the sweep. Combine that with the fact that their bullpen was so overworked based on what happened the previous night. He's right. When you combine what he did for the bullpen, not just in this game, but refreshing it for Thursday and Friday against Miami, and then you factor in 8 scoreless innings, which is just stupid and something we never see, I think Edwin Diaz and Mark Vientos are hard luck losers for the second time in 4 weeks. And as our last emailer suggested, it could have been for the 3rd time in 4 weeks because he could have won it in the Atlanta series. Nolan McLean, you are the man right now. Now, Hoff, there's nothing you can say that's going to convince me otherwise, but you heard the candidates, Vientos, Edwin Diaz, McLean, there were a few others. Do you agree with the committee's decision to name Nolan McLean the Rico I'm the man now star of the series?
I think that Vientos has to get a more of a nod than this. I think you guys are just bitching him around because he's the reason why McLean was able to go out there in the 8th inning and get out of that jam. Like I said, he has been so impressive. It's now 10 games or is it 11 games in a row? He's got an RBI. I think it's 10 games in a row, 17 RBIs in 10 games. Mark Vientos is stupid right now. It is amazing how good he's been. And he's not terrible at third base either. I know we want to sit there and act like he's not a good third baseman, but defensively, he's made some good enough plays where we have to tip the cap a little bit more.
The finale against the Nationals was the last time Mark Vientos played in a game and didn't drive in a run, which is remarkable. That's 3 games against Atlanta, and of course, these 3 games against Philadelphia, 6 consecutive games with an RBI. It's not a knock on Mark Vientos. I think what McLean did, especially with a bullpen that was so ravaged by usage, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mark Vientos. Hopefully you can win next week.
Mark, I tried for you, buddy.
No, I know. And look, Mark Vientos hasn't won a Rico I'm the man now star of the series in a while. He hasn't won it since the San Diego sweep. And nobody wants to win the Rico I'm the man now star of the series when you get swept. Now, speaking of sweeps, it was a positive sweep, but there needs to be a negative. And I think this one is open and shut. We don't have to waste much time on it. I think clearly the net negative of this 3-game series was Ryan Helsley, because Ryan Helsley led to what we just said about the bullpen. If Ryan Helsley gets the job done, the Mets aren't overextending Edwin Diaz to get 5 outs. So I think Helsley certainly contributed to this. It was not a good performance by Sean Manaea. I mean, you can get on him. He only pitched into the 5th inning. So I know it was a good outing by him, but in terms of innings, it certainly wasn't good enough. And we know about Kodai Senga. He pitched into the 5th inning, but couldn't get an out. But I think it's clear Ryan Helsley. Anyone I'm missing that would deserve a nod? I know those are more difficult than 3-game sweeps, but is it Ryan Helsley easily in a romp?
I mean, if you want to try to put Soto in the mix, you could too. Not Juan Soto, but Gregory Soto.
Oh,
And, yeah. No, not Juan. No, Juan was fine. I'm sorry. There's 2 Sotos. They're both left-handed. I apologize. My fault. But
no,
Gregory
that's a good one. I think that Gregory Soto, who comes in to clean up Manaya's mess in the 5th inning, walks Schwarber, gives up the hit to Bryce Harper. I mean, honorable mention to Gregory Soto, but yeah, Ryan Helsley coming into a lead in the 8th inning with Hell's Bells and giving up a 2-run home run of all people, Harrison Bader. He's got that on lock.
Yeah, but I do think he should still keep the song. I do.
Well, he could keep the song. He just can't keep the histrionics with it. The fire burning, the bells and all that. Like, everyone has music. So it's not the music. It's more the show that goes along with it that needs to stop until you're an effective reliever.
Right, but I think that he goes off of energy, and I think that really motivates him. And I think that I think he's tipping his pitches. I think that's the problem.
It does feel like that's the case. And so the question now is, how do they fix it? I mean, we all accept that that's what's happening right now. Now, Mendoza was asked specifically about that. And he said no. Like, one of the first things he jumped at is, well, some of his pitches have been non-competitive. Those are Carlos Mendoza's words. So he went more specifically to ripping the pitches, the conviction of the pitch, the location of a fastball, more so than, yeah, he's tipping his pitches and they know what's coming. Now, that could be part of Mendy not admitting that. I don't know. What he's saying to the media may not be necessarily what they're thinking behind the scenes. But the challenge that Carlos is going to face, because he was also asked, are you going to use him in low leverage spots? And his answer was, we're in a pennant race. We're in a high leverage spot. Like, there aren't just easy situations to throw a guy in. You know, if you're playing close games every night, where is the low leverage spot one speaks of? And then it also opens up the question, okay, if Ryan Helsley has been buried into the low leverage spot, as has Ryan Stanek, who are the guys that you trust? And right now it's a very short list. It's Edwin Diaz, it's Tyler Rogers, it's not much else, but it opens up all of the possibilities of, let's say, Tyler McGill being added as a reliever. He should be ready soon. Brandon Sproat being added as a reliever. Even Jonah Tong himself. Hear me out on Jonah Tong. I'm pumped up to see him make his major league debut on Friday. But the Mets are going to start to have off days soon. This stretch was the only period of time where they were really going to need a 6th starter. After they get that much needed off day, after the Detroit series, they then play a bunch of games, 10 straight with Cincy, Philly, and Texas. But then they have an off day. Then they play 6 straight. Then they have an off day. Then they play 6 straight, and the regular season is over. So they don't have to have a 6th starter that many times through. So if Jonah Tong is impressive on Friday night, do the Mets say, yeah, that was pretty good, but we could use you out of the bullpen? Or do they go back to the Clay Holmes idea that we've talked endlessly about? He's got the experience out of the bullpen, and it shows you how quickly things can change. Because after the trade deadline, we looked at Clay Holmes and said, how could they move him to the bullpen? They don't have any room. Now it's the complete opposite. You look at this bullpen and you say, yeah, they could use a guy or two. And they also have the available roster spots. I mean, Jose Castillo is here for now. Kevin Herget is here for now. We'll see. And then they'll add an extra spot on September 1st where they can add a 14th pitcher. So I think Tong may be a factor. I think McGill may be a factor. Clay Holmes may be a factor. And I'll tell you another guy I would consider. I know the money makes it like, I don't want to do it. Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea could be an effective reliever. He's done it before. We saw him do it, remember, in his first appearance this season, right before the All-Star break. My point to you, my point to the audience right now is everything's on the table. And I think David Stearns has now proven with McLean's call up, with Jonah Tong even being called up, which feels like a big surprise. Everything is on the table. He said 14 best pitchers need to be on this team. Okay. Well, who are the 5 best starters or 6 best starters or 4 best starters? Same thing with bullpen arms. So I think everything is on the table. over the next couple of weeks. But hey, if Jonah Tong pitches 7 scoreless, it's going to be tough to take him out of the rotation.
It's going to be tough to beat what McLean's done. I feel bad for Jonah Tong a little bit because it's going to be almost impossible. The expectations are now through the roof. Because he was in Double-A for majority of the season.
Yeah, he's only made 2 starts at Triple-A. That's it.
Yeah. So now we're like, oh my God, what is Jonah Tong going to be like? If he only pitched 2 starts and was amazing and we're going to bring him up already, what is he going to do? And I feel like it's almost impossible to match what McLean has done in the first 3 games.
The other story going around during the Mets sweep was Francisco Alvarez playing a rehab game and getting hit by a pitch on his hand. I think it's his pinky that got affected. Have we gotten any kind of update on Francisco Alvarez, or is this going to be something that we're going to have to worry about for the next couple of days? Because it is incredible the bad luck this man has with his hands.
Yeah, I haven't seen the latest update. Let's see. No, just that he was removed. Again, it was left pinky. It was not the already injured hand, so that's the only good thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that it's not the same injury. It's just you start to wonder, and I watched the video of it just now. He got hit by a pitch. It was a check swing. Ball came up. It hit him. It's bad luck, but it's amazing how much bad luck this guy is having with his freaking hands. For now with Alvarez, I hope he comes back. I really do. But for now, they're getting good defense from Sanger and Torrens. They're actually getting more offense than I think we could have imagined from the catcher position. But they will miss Alvarez. They may not miss him today because they swept the Phillies and Torrens drove in 5 runs in game 1. But they're going to miss Alvarez. So I hope he can come back. I'm just skeptical that he's going to be able to play through the pain and be effective.
And I don't know if this is even possible, but I'm going to say this because I see Francisco Lindor. He's got this extra padding on his hand. Like he's got his glove, but he's got a bit padding. Like it kind of goes up to like the knuckles and stuff like that. Can he use that? Can he like start putting more padding on his hands just to protect when he's up at bat? I mean, he has bad luck. That's all it is. But
well,
use more padding.
He has bad luck, but he also cannot be diving headfirst in a second base. Like that's got to stop. You know, even if you lose that extra half a second on a bang play, being called out is a lot better than missing 6 to 8 weeks, which is always the possibility when you jam a finger and a hand. Here's the bottom line, everybody. Be happy. The Mets swept the Phillies. They're 4 games back. They have to go annihilate the Marlins now. Like, that's the name of the game. I'm excited, but I'm also reasoned. The reason I'm not going to tell you, oh, we'll win in the division is because I don't believe it yet. I don't. Yeah, they beat the crap out of the Phillies, and they've done a wonderful job of doing that. We are finally on the other end of a beatdown from a division rival, and I love it. But that doesn't mean that they're going to look at the Miami Marlins for the next 4 days and annihilate them. They can very easily split this series, watch the Phillies annihilate the Braves, and be 6 games out again. And that's why the challenge is on for this team. Great series. There are no negatives. Now go beat the Marlins. Go do that. And, asking for a sweep of a 4-game series probably feels like too much. You better win 3 out of 4. That's my expectation. Will I be okay with a loss? Obviously, it depends how the loss occurs. But yet win the series. You cannot leave Citi Field with a split against the Miami Marlins. And it's not going to be easy. The Marlins are a funky team. Perez, Cabrera, a couple of good arms they're going to have to face over the weekend. I think Sandy Alcantara may get the ball on Sunday. So they're going to face some tough cookies with this Miami team. So I'm not suggesting it's easy. But if you want me to believe, like a few of you emailers are asking me, is the division over? Can they win the division? Go beat the freaking Marlins. Go put together a sustained amount of winning. Right now, they've won 5 out of their last 6. That's great. That is nothing compared to the garbage they gave us for 2 months. So instead of it being 5 out of 6, make it 9 out of 10. And let's go from there.
And can I tell you, they are facing Sandy on Sunday. And unfortunately for the Mets, he's pitched a lot better. He's pitched in his last 7 starts. He's had 4 quality starts. I mean, he lowered his ERA was up towards 8. It's like 5 and change now. So
Look, the Marlins have good pitching. I mean, Yuri Perez, they're going to face Edward Cabrera. You mentioned the way Sandy's throwing the ball. Not going to be easy, but no excuses. Go get it done. And then let's reconvene. We'll probably have a Rico before then, but let's reconvene after the Miami series. Let's see how they do. Let's see what Philly does. And I can promise you this. If we're doing the Rico Sunday night and the Mets are 2 games back, game on, bitches. But they got work to do. And that work begins on Thursday night against the Marlins.
I have one question before we say goodbye. You were at the stadium today.
I was in the ballpark on Wednesday night.
And you stood up in the 8th inning.
I stood up in the 8th inning to give a standing ovation to Nolan McLean.
Did you also notice did you happen to see the base running competition during the inning where like the kid has to run through and pick up the bag and then run back?
I mean, I don't remember anything specific from it.
Okay, well, he happens to be, I have to give him a shout out, Matt Vecchione. He is from Eastchester Little League, and he raced and he actually won.
Nice.
That's the race where you got to go from one to the outfield, pick up the base, come back. He run. It was like by a split second, but he won. So I got to give the kid a shout out. That's awesome.
What does he win? Do we know?
Yeah, hold on. He wins the base.
He actually wins the base.
Yeah, he wins the. By the way, those things are awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great prize.
I don't know what
great experience getting a run on the baseball field like that.
Yeah. Oh my God. During a game too. It's not even like afterwards. Like, I mean, I think your kids have run on the field after a game, but while like the players are like throwing a ball around and stuff like that, that's in front of all those people.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. Did a hell of a job. Well, congratulations to Matt. Hell of a job. Good for him. We'll have Rico Brogna's after every series, but remember to subscribe because you never know. Maybe there'll be an instant reaction on Friday night. Maybe an instant reaction on Saturday. So download the Rico Brogna, and you never know when we'll pop on, but we always guarantee series recap Rico Brogna's throughout this Major League Baseball season. Thank you very much for listening, downloading, and subscribing to a happy edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.